When the Canon C100 was released, it would set you back $8,000 plus tax, which was all the way back in 2012. 12 years later, you can buy one used for more than 90% off the original price, which gets you a truly legendary video camera for around $500. But that doesn't automatically mean it's a good investment though. It takes a lot these days to qualify as a relevant cinema camera. First, let's look at the design of the camera body. If you've ever used a C100, or if you've ever heard anybody talk about a C100, you know it's acclaimed for its exceptional ergonomics. The body's made of a typical Canon plastic, which means it's both lightweight and fairly tough. Physical buttons are arrayed all over the operator side and make shooting an efficient and enjoyable experience. Toggling zebras, peaking, focus mag, and waveform are all a single button press away. If you need to manipulate exposure or white balance, you can do so quickly without going through a menu. My favorite physical control is the internal ND filter, which gives you 2-stop, 4-stop, and 6-stop light reductions without needing a screw-on filter or matte box. There are dual SD card slots and an integrated garage for Canon's BP series batteries on the back, as well as 2 full-size XLRs built directly into the top handle. The monitor works just fine, and there's an EVF for sunny conditions, although it does feel fairly dated all these years later. Just in case you guys are wondering what you can find within the menus, we'll run through it really quick. So you have all of your general camera setup stuff on this first page, and then you have another section for audio setup, section for video setup. You have LCD and viewfinder settings. This is where you can turn off and on your peaking, your zebras, all that kinds of stuff. You got time code, and then other functions. Weirdly enough, is the biggest menu where almost everything actually is. You can adjust the tallies, you can assign buttons, you can change the frequency and frame rates, you got your bitrate selections, you can adjust HDMI. This is where a majority of the good stuff is. Because the file sizes are so small and the power draw is so low, with a fully charged battery and a 64 gig SD card, you can record basically all day. You don't really need to invest in any peripherals to fix missing features. Everything's here and ready to work. The design of the C100 allows for a beautiful level of minimalism, which a lot of times can translate to a more creative mind on set. I never had any doubts about the physical camera body. It's the image quality that's much more interesting. The C100 sports a Super 35 4K sensor that downsamples in body to a full HD 8-bit 420 AVC HD image. I always prefer a decent HD image to a lackluster 4K one, so it isn't the resolution that bothers me. The downsampled 4K is well detailed and fantastic looking. It's the thin files that could be an issue. If we aren't careful with exposing and grading, an 8-bit image with a 24 megabits per second maximum data rate could break apart pretty easily. The C100 lets you record in log, albeit the limited original C-Log intended for 8-bit footage, but it surprisingly looks pretty good. Canon claims 12 stops of dynamic range, and as long as you're careful, there's enough latitude to work with in most cases. I don't have an exact rolling shutter reading, but I think it's estimated to be around 15 milliseconds. I never noticed any skewing in any of my footage, so you shouldn't have to worry about it. Low-light performance is far from world-class, especially in 2024, but I found it surprisingly useful in a pinch. Careful exposure and grading will give you good results in most cases, but you definitely can't use the C100 as night vision. Color science was Canon's party trick in the early days of prosumer filmmaking, and all these years later, the images still look pretty impressive. Dark greens show up rich and full, bright blues don't fall into a murky purple, and skin tones tend to look peachy and healthy. With the limited data in these files, it's a good thing to have a decent starting place. There's only so much we can do in post before the image falls apart under the weight of a heavy grade. When you first plug your card in, the process of getting your clips, because it's recorded in AVC HD, can be a little spooky. You have to go into private, and then you got AVC HD. If you right click it and go to show package contents, you get BDMV, and then right click show package contents, and then you have to go to stream, and here are all of your clips, your MTS files. I brought this one into Resolve because it'll be interesting to grade. What we're going to start off with, as always, is a color space transform. This is recording in Rec 709 for the gamut for the color space. And of course, we're going to be printing in Rec 709. Output gamut is also going to be Rec 709. Input gamma is C-Log. So the reason I chose this clip is because I underexposed it, so we can see how the sensor is going to react, what kind of noise we're going to get. First thing that we're going to notice here is that it's a little bit crunchy as far as the contrast goes. If you look down here at the waveform, we're actually running off the bottom of 0 IRE. So I'm going to add a node before the transform, and we'll just go to our primaries. I'm going to turn down the contrast, and I'm going to turn up the offset and get us to a little bit more of a normal looking exposure so we can work with this. You could stay in here and work with your primaries, your lift gamma gain. You guys know that I like to do my contrast most of the time within curves. We're going to turn editable splines on, and then I'm going to start working the bottom point down a little bit and adjusting the absolute blacks and bringing them up just a little bit. Maybe we can just land there. I'm going to add a node after the color space transform, and we're going to turn up the saturation to about 60. I'm liking that. So the color detail within my face is actually pretty impressive, at least on the well exposed side. The skin tone looks pretty good. We can go to our vector scope and see how it did. This should be white balanced properly. You can definitely tell that there's some internal noise reduction going on. We're not getting pure single pixel grain. We're getting these sort of swimmy, smeary type of grain movements, which is not ideal, but at least the image itself is probably a little bit cleaner because of it. You can tell with certain things like sharpness. If we go into my eye here, this is an HD image in a 4K timeline. On a detail level, I actually think this looks amazing. The downsampled internal 4K to 1080p footage looks awesome. It's just that I think that there's, in addition to that, some internal sharpening as well. This is like a Summicron R50mm wide open, so this isn't an Otis or anything. It's taking a little bit of the edge off. We can see some halation on little bright pieces like this. When I was shooting earlier with my Sigma 18-35, the footage just looks a little bit digital and bitey, which is interesting because I thought that putting HD footage in a 4K timeline would result in really soft footage. I think that it's more than sharp enough. It's sharper than some 4K that I've seen. The image that you can get out of a $500 camera right here with all of the features in it is absolutely insane. After a few years of exciting cameras, the C100 slipped away from the spotlight, but remained as a workhorse camera for many, many years. It's sort of a jack of all trades, master of none, and very anxiety reducing. Using the C100 is like watching the episode when Sokka gets sword training on a day you stay home sick. Everything about it's nice and chill. It's a solid choice for a first cinema camera or a cheap B cam as long as you nail the fundamentals. It can adapt to almost any scenario, and you're only investing around $500 for the body. The Mark II is out there and is a great choice as well, but comes in at around twice the price on average, which is still a great deal, but the C100 original is hard to beat as far as dollars to raw value goes. As far as today's landscape looks like in the world of cinema cameras, the dated features and thin Full HD videos of the C100 are hardly impressive, but the pure well-roundedness and low price certainly are. This was a really popular camera for new filmmakers back when it was twice as expensive, and these days I would highly recommend it if you don't want to scrap for a better image with a more complicated setup. If you want your camera to do its job simply and as efficiently as possible, this is what you're looking for. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.